So, yesterday morning I woke up and I felt good because my reflection, my homily for today was all done and I liked it, all wrapped up neatly. And then something happened yesterday that made me put it aside completely. And it started fairly innocently. Got a call from a mother who asked if I could do her a favor. Her child is receiving First Holy Communion today at their parish, and he needed to receive the sacrament of reconciliation, first reconciliation. So I said, sure, come on over, we'll take care of it. He had a baseball game in the morning. After the baseball game, they came over. I said, how was the baseball game? And he said, it was a lot of fun. We lost 12-1. And I said, oh, really? He said, well, it was better than the last game when we lost 24-0. So right away I figured, this kid's going to make it through life. He has a way of seeing the rainbows and the sunlight, even through the clouds. His mother left the room, and I said, well, let's have you make your first reconciliation. And he surprised me. He said, it's not my first, it's my third one. And I said, but you're making your first Holy Communion tomorrow? And he said, yes. I said, why is this your third one? He said, well, I made my first reconciliation, and then due to the virus, they canceled First Holy Communion. And then his parish rescheduled it in smaller groups. So he went to confession again, and then his little sister got COVID, and so they were quarantined in his house, and he missed it the second time. So he just felt he had to go again before he made his first Holy Communion, which he's doing right about this time today. And so I said, well, what would you like to tell Jesus you're sorry for? And I was expecting the usual things third grader would say. And he looked at me and said, I'm really very sorry because I was really mad at God and really mad at my sister. I said, well, why were you mad at God? I said, I got mad at God because I really wanted to make my first Holy Communion, and twice I wasn't able to do it. Why were you mad at your sister? She got the COVID, so I couldn't do it that second time. He said, I can't go to communion. This is what he said. I can't go to communion being mad at God, being mad at my sister. That's quite an insight for a little guy to come up with. I went back and looked at the readings again, and something struck me. The apostles were in the upper room. Jesus said, receive the Holy Spirit. He ate with them. He took them on the hill after that so they could watch him ascend into heaven. But they were still hiding in the upper room. He had given them the Holy Spirit, but they had not accepted it. They had not received it. So God comes back stronger with a strong wind that just clears everything away, and flames that burns away all the other stuff, everything that's inside of them, their fears, their anxiety, their confusion, their doubts, all of that blown away and burnt away so they could get up in front of the people who had gathered in Jerusalem for a big holiday, a big festival. Gadalapuza, I think they called it back then, I'm not sure. They all gathered from all these different countries. They all spoke different languages. They didn't understand the words of the apostles, but they understood in their hearts what the apostles were saying to them. That's the moment of the Holy Spirit. That's when the Spirit comes into us. Sometimes it can be very easily, we feel God's presence with us. Other times it has to be blown around in us. We've got to be burnt before we feel it. We've got to be cleansed. Well, what the heck has happened over the last year or so? COVID has changed a lot of things. As we start to get back to normal now, we all talk about what is the new normal going to be? How have we changed? What have we learned, more importantly, from the last year? Do we really cherish now what we may have been taking for granted? Sometimes, as families, we take each other for granted. The busyness of driving one kid to a baseball game and another kid to a dance class and all that's going on, we take the gift of family for granted. Children take their parents and their siblings for granted. Going to work, having the job, with other co-workers, feeling like we're accomplishing things. Harder to do, we're sitting at a computer in our pajamas, working from there, something totally different. We begin to realize the value and the goodness. Maybe we lost somebody in our family or among our friends, or know of someone who died of the virus. And we begin to realize how valuable life is, how awkward it was, how sometimes we felt awkward keeping our distance from other people, how we missed the hugs, how we missed the kisses, how we missed sometimes even being able to see the people we love, how we missed seeing the smile behind the mask. How has that changed us? Has the Spirit really come into our lives? Last week, standing in line at the grocery store, I was listening to the conversation behind me. You learn a lot about life in line at the grocery store if you listen hard enough. And there was a gentleman, and he was complaining to the point of real anger. He was really angry because he had gotten his shots, his vaccine, and we weren't having a chance, a lottery to win $1 million if you get the shots. He wanted that opportunity to win $1 million. And he actually said, had I known, I would have waited. Isn't your life worth more than the odds of winning $1 million? The Spirit comes to us, but we have to accept the Spirit in. The Spirit cannot force God's presence, God's love, God's wisdom, God's hope into us. It's offered to us in simple ways. I give you my Spirit, Jesus said, in more dramatic ways with the winds and the flames, and in everyday life. And in the last year and a half, God has given us incredible opportunities to look at where our faith is, what it means to us, how we reflect that, how we share that faith with others, how we become the ones that offer God's Spirit to other people by our kindness, by our love, by our compassion, by our concern, by our openness, by our patience. It's up to us to do it. And it's also up to us to be open to find that love in our hearts through those same gestures, through those same moments, through those same gifts given to us by other people. This year, the Feast of Pentecost is very, very real. If a little child can say, I can't have God come into my heart in the Eucharist if I'm angry at God, if I'm angry at my sister whom I love, let's learn a lesson from everything that's happened. Put aside those things that keep us from feeling God's love in our hearts so that we can be the source of sharing it with others, so that we can be in communion with our loving God and so be in communion with each other, our sisters and brothers, our loved ones, all those who are still suffering from war, suffering from the virus, suffering from so much throughout the world. Let the Spirit bring us in communion in that, and let the Spirit work in and through us. That's Pentecost. Blessed Pentecost to each and every one of you.